Your guy. Wednesday, Sundays, catch the ride. Football hoops, we break it wide. Stats and facts, truth on high. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Hit the corner of the field, we strategize. Breaking the game down, no disguise. Play by play, we analyze. I wear sharp, we magnify. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays heat, Sundays ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays heat, Sundays ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel.
All right, everybody, what's going on, man? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. I am your tour guide around the swag. C-Wells coming at you, and today we're gonna do a little something little different. I mean, it's coach search season, so I've seen some lists and things of people who could be prospective candidates for the Southern University coaching job. So I felt like I should just kind of go over some of these names, some of the names that you may not. I don't want to say you may not know because I know most people know these guys, but some of the names that may not be the most common names on the list. So we're gonna we're not gonna really talk about the Trey Olivers and the Kenneth Berries, which I personally don't think those guys are honest candidates for this job. Could be wrong, but I don't really see it. They got things that they already got set up. I don't know if either one of them would actually take this job. So these a lot of these names come from a list that was in the Advocate, which is Baton Rouge newspaper. So a lot of these names come from there, and a couple of them just come from just seeing people mentioned like on Facebook or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of go over some of these guys. Again, these are not my candidates. I don't really have a set guy who I think should be the job. I do think whoever it is should be offensive minded. And if he's not necessarily the offensive mind itself, he needs to have a coordinator that's been with him with a good offensive philosophy to open up the offense at Southern. Because even in last year, Southern offense has normally topped out at about 22 points per game. So I think you can I think you can hire a good DC to put together a good defense. I mean, you can do the same with offense, but I just think a coach that's offensive minded would definitely help this situation a lot, because that more so than anything is where this program needs a shot in the arm. Offense sells tickets. So if you can get you somebody with offensive pedigree, I think you can help increase some of this stuff and get rid of some of the nasty taste of these previous seasons. Now, I also want to say I'm not opposed to Coach McNair getting a job if he finishes the season strong and things kind of continue to look like they did Saturday, except for the defense. But I would say that with the caveat that he has to have an all new staff. I don't really want any remnants from this previous staff. So I think it's best to kind of start fresh. But I really think that should be like, I don't want to say last resort, but that should be one of the lower spots on the list. So these are just some names. I don't know how realistic any of these guys are. I obviously don't know how any of these guys view this job. I don't know how Southern views them. I don't know I don't know nothing. But these are just a few guys who I like I said, I saw their names on the list. I thought they were interesting. I wanted to point them out. I'm gonna throw the caveat out there because I know some people they don't like it, but there are there are a couple coaches who ain't black on this list. So I'm not saying that's the route that Southern need to go, but I mean, let's be real, man. It's 2025. It can happen. I mean, whether you want it to or not, it could happen. You had a white boy playing quarterback at Southern already, so why you can't have a white boy coaching Southern? I don't understand it. I mean, if that's the best guy for the job, that's the best guy for the job. Hiring black people just because they black gives you Terrence Graves and Eric Dooley. So let's just, I'm not saying that's the route they need to go, but I'm just saying, hey, it is what it is. I mean, would you really tell me? And obviously this ain't realistic, but would you really tell me that if a top-notch guy took wanted this job, a guy that was a winner, a guy that had championship pedigree, a guy that could recruit his ass, or a guy that had a staff that was gonna come with him, and he a white, you'll tell him no just because he white? If you willing to have to hire Eric Dooley part two to avoid hiring a white boy, hey, that's on you. But I'm just putting it out there, so don't even trip off of that. I'm just looking at candidates, man. I'm not worried about what color the month it is. I'm just looking at candidates. So let's go ahead and jump into this again. These are just names I saw all over the place, so I wanted to kind of compile them here. And I probably won't do a lot of this because they don't anticipate naming a coach until after the Bayou Classic. So I don't really want to talk about this every week, but it's still relatively fresh. It only happened a week ago. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first name on the list is Dr. Alvin Parker from Virginia Union University. This program has been on fire, winning a lot since he's been there. He's in his eighth season. One thing is he's also the associate athletic director there too. So I don't know how much impact that will have on him taking a job. He might even wait for one of those MEAC jobs to come over. I don't know, but you a guy like this, you don't not look at. Um, he's been the head coach at VUU since 2017. And like I said, he entering his eighth season. Since 2021, he served as the associate athletics director. Um, and so, he's a guy who's well versed. I mean, hey, maybe he can help out with that kind of stuff at Southern. I don't know. But looking at his tenure at head coach, he's been great. He's 51 and 15. That's 81% winning percentage. That's one of the highest winning percentages amongst D1 and D2 coaches. His leadership has guided the Panthers to unprecedented heights, including consecutive CIA championships and an Elite Eight appearance in the NCAA D2 playoffs, making the first playoff victory in school history. Under his stewardship, VU has also twice earned the prestigious Freddie Vaughn's Award for the highest team GPA in 2023 and 2024, exemplifying his commitment to academic and athletic excellence. In May of 2024, he was named to the Black College Football Hall of Fame, HBCU Coach of the Year. And he also marked his 25th year in coaching in 2024, during which he led the Panthers to a 10-4 season last year, a CIAA title, and a number 11 final ranking in the nation. His innovative play 4-11 philosophy underscores his ability to develop champions both on and off the field. In 2024, his offense showed what they could do, reaching new heights, setting numerous school records and conference records. Offense averaged 45 points per game, nearly 500 yards per game. Number 2 in the nation in pass efficiency, had 30 touchdowns and 7 500-plus yard games. In 2023, that season was equally historic, with the Panthers securing their first CIAA championship since 2001 and earning multiple accolades, including 11 all-conference selections and 2 individual player of the year awards. Dr. Parker being named the 2023 CIAA Coach of the Year. His emphasis on strategic vision, accountability, and innovation resulted in national rankings across 15 statistical categories and a return to the D2 playoffs. In 2022, they started the season 8-0 on the way to a playoff appearance. That playoff game marked only the second time in history that VUU has hosted a playoff game. They finished that season at 9-2. He also was Coach of the Year. So as you can see, these last few years, and in that time, they had a running back, Jada Byers, who was a guy who went over for 2,000 yards He was a big time back, and when you look at what the offense does, you know, with the talent and potential that you can pick up in this area, and with the portal, a guy like that, if he could make the transition, would definitely be a good fit. He obviously emphasized academics, and that can never sway you wrong. Um, and that's something that you can always hang your hat on. Um, just a quick look at what the Panthers are doing right now this season. They're 7-1, 5-0 in conference, averaging 42 points per game. They're averaging over 300 yards on the ground. Again, they do run the ball extremely well, um, and they're averaging about 174 through the air. So they are a team that wants to run, but they can go to the air. They have 15 touchdowns on the season through the air and 30 on the ground. They are average. The defense is allowing 17 points per game and 112 yards on the ground and 118 through the air. So um, this is obviously a very explosive team, and again, they are undefeated in conference right now. So that's definitely, I think, a name that, again, don't know. I don't know interest one way or the other, but I think that's a guy who definitely has a pedigree, and he fits a lot of boxes. Next up is Maurice Flowers from Johnson C. Smith. The Bulls um, have been under his leadership since 2022. He has led them to their best record since 1975 and guided the team to the Florida Beach Bowl, marking the school's first bowl appearance in over a decade. He's proven to be a prolific fundraiser, securing upgraded athletics facilities, including a new turf field, weight room, and locker room. Hey, that's definitely something that you can look at. Prior to his time at Johnson C. Smith, he was head coach at Fort Valley State, and he led that team to a 5-5 finish in 2021 with 3 All-Conference selections and 3 players selected to play in the 2022 Legacy Bowl. He also served as the offensive coordinator at Fayetteville State, where he helped lead the Broncos to 2 CIAA South Division titles and an appearance in the CIAA championship game. Before FVSU, he served as the offensive coordinator at Fayetteville State in 17 and 19. Both years, the offense was one of the top offenses in CIAA. He helped lead that team to the South Division championship and a conference championship game appearance, averaging 34 points per game. 6 players earned all conference honors that year. Um, and so, he's also a guy who's had some coaching experience in the North Carolina area. He's from North Carolina, which you look at some of the coaches Southern has had in recent years. They've been from that area, or at least coached in that area. So that's definitely familiar territory for Southern. Um, and so, looking at what the Bulls are up to right now this season, um, like I said, they're on a pretty good tear right now. Um, they are 7-1 and 4-1 in conference. The offense averaging 38 points per game, defense 16.2. Uh, they are averaging 156 yards per game on the ground, giving up 112 on the ground, averaging 268 through the air. Have 20 touchdowns through the air. Offensively on the ground, they have 20 touchdowns there as well. They're averaging 6.6 yards per play as a team, 268 through the air, over 425 yards of offense as a team. Defensively, they're allowing 190 yards through the air, 303 total offense. The defense has 25 sacks, so they're definitely a team that's predicated on getting to the passer. And so again, another guy from that side of the country, another CIAA guy, could be tough to sway one of those guys from that part of the country. But I think these are at least names worth calling, and just seeing what's up. Here's a name that's been kind of batted around recently, um, and that's Joel Taylor. He's the coach at West Georgia. One thing I'm not quite sure. Again, I don't know where these guys lean one way or the other, but West Georgia is in transition to FCS, so I don't know if he'd be ready to leave right now, or if he kind of want to see that through. And that could be something that maybe makes him hesitate. But again, you got to you can make the call and see. He was selected to usher the program into the D1 era, and he did that in a big way, leading the Wolves to a win over Samford in the opening game of the 2024 season, which was their first FCS victory. By the end of the season, they had won 4 games and ended the season with their first ever UAC conference win over Utah Tech. In year one under Taylor, West Georgia had one all-conference player. Um, before that, he was at Mercer, where he was the defensive coordinator, regarded as one of the top DCs in FCS. He completely transformed that defense in 4 seasons in Macon. In Mercer, he inherited a defense that was ranked 106th in the country in scoring defense prior to his arrival. Then he saw his defense ranked 30th in the same category in 2022. Also in 22, his defense ranked 17th nationally in yards per play allowed and gave up 22.1 points per game. His 2022 defense led the FCS with 17 interceptions and gave up a low 28 touchdowns on the season. His tenure at Mercer culminated with a second-round appearance in the FCS playoffs in 2023. The Bears qualified for the postseason for the first time in program history and won their first ever appearance over Gardner-Webb in that game. The Bears surrendered just one touchdown, winning 17-7. He's been a defensive success everywhere that he's coached, including one season as defensive coordinator at Lenore Ryan. There, the Bears had a defense that ranked number 1 with 50 sacks, limited opponents to 17.4 points per game, and finished 13-1 with a conference championship and a quarterfinal berth in the D2 playoffs. Um, so he's a guy who's more defensive oriented, and again, um, I'm not against a guy who is more defensive oriented, but I would love to see what kind of offensive, does he bring his OC with him? Does he have somebody who, in mind that he would get at that point? Right now, Austin Davis is his DC. So his OC, excuse me. So that's something, and he just joined staff last season when Coach Taylor took over as the O-line coach first. He came from Northern Arizona, and so he was the offensive line coach there. I think this may be his first real OC job. So I'm not quite sure, how much connection areas and what kind of systems that they would have. But that's always something to look for when you have a defensive minded coach. And I mean, if you have an offensive minded coach, you got to look at what kind of DC they're gonna bring over. So it all kind of comes together in the wash. But right now the Wolves are 6-3 6-3 overall, 3-3 in conference. They're averaging 26 points per game, giving up 24. They average 167 on the ground. They give up 130 on the ground. They give up 222 through the air, and they have passed for 174 yards. So they're not necessarily a great offensive team, but defensively they're pretty solid. And right now, like I said, they're 3-3, and they kind of trying to find their way back. They started off pretty strong, kind of faded a little bit, but they're trying to get themselves right. Uh, they've had a tough go of it the last few weeks. They played 3 ranked teams. They played Austin P, who was 21 at the time. They played Abilene Christian, who was 19 at the time, and then they played Tarleton State, who was number 3 at the time. And so that's a tough slate. They went 0-3 in those games. Those are the 3 conference losses. But they're sitting in a decent spot with an overall winning record. It'd be interesting to see, what he does, or if there's any connection between Southern and him. Next up is another name again I've seen floating around, and that's Teddy Keaton, who is the coach at coach at Clark Atlanta. Um, he took over. Was it last season? But they don't have the dates. But he's had a really good offense in his time at Central. Why do I keep in his time at Clark? Let me. Um, he started off. He came from Allen, and his offense was really sharp there. Um, they averaged 32 points a game at Allen in 2023. He also led they also led the conference in yards per game. with 454 yards per game. They topped the league in passing at 322 yards per game. And last season, the Panthers were very explosive through the air. Um, I'm gonna take a look at where they are this season, but I'm also gonna kind of give you a look at where they were last season, because, like I said, they had a really explosive passing attack last season, and he's the guy who's had great offenses. This season they're not doing so well. They're 2-6, 1-5 in conference, so that's you know that's that's kind of dicey. Um, you know, Although he did have success last year, but I don't know if that's enough to overcome where they are. But the offense is averaging 25 points per game. Defense is not good this year, getting up 35.7. Offense 100 yards per game on the ground and 251 through the air. So 351 this season. Again, not necessarily a good season there, but I think a lot of people were kind of looking at what he did last season, with the Panthers, where they had a good run through the SIAC and was able to have a very successful season. Um, Last season they scored 31 points per game, but defensively they still gave up a lot of points. They gave up 32. So they were a team that just kind of had shootouts. They went 7-3-1 and 6-2 in conference last season. They threw for 299. They had 32 touchdowns, but 18 interceptions. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not really, really sure on this one. But this is a name that really was batted around. I think a lot of people looked at the job that he did with David Wright last season, who threw for 3,200 yards and 31 touchdowns. But he also did have 16 interceptions. And they had two guys catch over 70 passes last season. Monty Harris had 75 for 1,004 yards and 14 touchdowns, and Jamal Jones had 74 for 987 and 6 touchdowns. They also had a guy, Virgil Young, had 27 catches for 398 and 5 touchdowns. So they were a team who put up some big offensive numbers. And like I said, I saw his name battered around a lot, and I wanted to throw it there. But again, there's not a lot there to really solidify um, what probably being looked at. Next up is Felton Huggins from Kentucky State. He enters his second season at Kentucky State, being the head coach. In his first season, the Thoroughbreds achieved 1,539 receiving yards, the highest total since 2014. He ended the season at 3-7. He comes to Kentucky State after spending the past year as assistant coach of wide receivers at McNeese. Prior to his time at McNeese, he served as the OC and inside wide receiver coach at Charleston Southern in 2019. He arrived at Charleston Southern after 6 years at LaGrange College in Georgia, where he was associate head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and academic coordinator. His first season calling plays for Charleston Southern, he put numerous student athletes in the top 100 FCS in multiple offensive categories, including passing efficiency, passing touchdowns, passing yards, points, receiving touchdowns, scoring, and yards per attempt. Cameron Brown set the Charleston Southern single season receiving record for touchdowns with 10, while the Buccaneers posted their second most first downs per game in school history with 20.1. Charleston Southern posted a trio of all Big South second team selections. Uh, Cameron Brown, Zach Evans, offensive lineman, and Stephen Lambus, offensive lineman, as the Bucks recorded their third most offensive yards in a single season, 4,341. A school record 21 different receivers caught passes in the 2019 season, as well as 5 different receivers had at least 20 catches. So you can see the offense was very explosive and very pass happy. In 2014, he saw senior receiver Griffin Royale earn USA South All Conference honors. He broke his own single season record with 67 receptions and graduated as the Panthers' leading receiver with 1,126 receptions. So he's a guy who had a lot of success with the passing game, receivers especially. He played at Southeastern Louisiana. He started for 3 years with the Lions and finished his time at the school as the career leader in receptions with 162 and receiving yards 2,350. When he finished his collegiate career, Huggins still holds the school record for catches in a season, 84, and receiving yards at 1,313. In addition, he tied for the most catches in a game with 13 and a single game receiving yards record with 266. He received the third team All-American honors and All-Conference honors his junior and senior year. Um, so again, you can see where he goes, and he's implemented some air raid in his offense, but that's kind of what he comes from. So that's something that you probably want to look at um, offensively. Let's see if they let's see what the Thoroughbreds are doing this season. Um, this is a very interesting name. Got Louisiana connection, so that definitely doesn't hurt from the area, the general area. So again, at least played in the general area, so that definitely helps. Right now, they're 5-6. Oh, that's 2024. Let's see if they 25 stats. Last season they finished 5-6, 4-4. This season they 6-2, 5-1. And if you watch that game they played against Grambling, they do throw the ball around a lot. They just don't have the depth to compete, but they're averaging 31 points per game, 145 on the ground, 16 touchdowns, 4.3 yards per carry, 223, 232 through the air, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. 377 total offense. They have 34 total touchdowns. Defensively giving up 24 points per game, 128 on the ground, 237 through the air, 365 total. So they've been playing some good ball, and again, that's kind of what you want to look at. Like Coach Jackson said, your name you're only gonna be brought up in these kind of situations if you're a winner. So right now, he's doing well. So you want to see again, not a lot. Only his second year of head coaching, but you know, seems to be moving in the right track. I don't know, how much the powers that be are looking for, you know, coaches with long ranging um head coaching experience, or are they just looking for, I don't know what their criteria is. So it's kind of tough to kind of, nail down some things, but it's always interesting. This is a name that popped up in the advocate list, and I didn't know anything about this guy. I knew about his program, but didn't know anything about the guy. So, uh, um, this is Caleb Nobles, who is the head coach at West Florida. He got the job on December 13th of 2022. So he's the second head coach in program history, relatively young program. He comes into the 2025 season with a 15-7 record, nationally ranked coming into the season at number 11. He led the team to a 7-3 record last season. Team at 9 all-conference honors, all-conference selections. Defensive end Trayvon Mitchell was named co-defensive player of the year, and an All-American. Wide receiver Corey Scott was named co-offensive freshman of the year. Return specialist Virgil Lemons was named All-American as the top punt returner in the country. He also signed a UDFA deal with the Titans. They were 8-4 in 2023. Had a wide receiver John Giles and defensive end John McMullen, who was named first team All-American. McMullen was defensive player of the year in the Gulf South. Ralph Ortiz was named the offensive freshman of the year, and Giles signed with UDFA with the Giants and later signed a practice squad with the Patriots. He was offensive player development coach at Clemson from 21 to 22. Um, he was quarterback coach and director of football operations at West Florida from 2017 to 2020. So this is a young guy. His coaching career started in 2017. He played at West Florida, um, which he played 4 seasons at quarterback at Valdosta State from 12 to 15. He appeared in 23 games, had 6 starts as a freshman and sophomore, threw for 2,009 yards and 19 touchdowns. He transferred to West Florida in 2016 to join the program as they were getting started, threw for 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns. He had 6 games with at least 300 yards passing, including a 503 6-touchdown performance against Missouri S&T in their first ever home game. So this is a guy that's basically, West Florida. That's basically from start to finish, he's been at West Florida. Again, I don't know how much, the Southern job would track him. I mean, he and his wife are both UWF alum. He was born in Jacksonville. You are UWF's in Pensacola, so he's a Florida guy. He went to school there. Like I said, I don't know how much the Southern job would actually entice him. I saw it, like I said, I saw his name on that list, and I was just kind of curious to kind of find out who he is. Right now, the Argonauts are 8-0, 1-0 in conference, averaging 36 points per game, giving up 15, averaging 155 on the ground. They're only giving up 41 on the ground as a defense. Offensively, over 300 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. They've thrown the ball 269 times. They ran it 284, so pretty balanced. They've given up 208 through the air as a defense, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 400 yards of offense. So again, this is one I'm not quite sure. Um, I don't know how they came up with their criteria for people making that list, but that's a guy who I'm not quite sure if if he even has any interest or Southern has any interest. Like I said, I feel like he's rooted to West Florida, so even if it was something from one side, I don't know if it would be returned. Next up is Tyrone Nicks. He's the first guy on this list who isn't a head coach. He's the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator at Tarleton State. Um, when the 2025 season he began his fourth season at Tarleton State as the defense coordinator and second as assistant head coach. His promotion announced on July 26, 2024. He also leads the inside linebackers for the third straight season after leading the safeties in 2022. Um, The Texans just posted a historic campaign in 2024, going 10-4 and 6-2 in the UAC, winning their playoff debut against Drake before dropping a tight contest at number 4 South Dakota on the road in the second round on November 30th. 13 seed Tarleton hosted Drake in the first round of the playoffs, winning 43-29 at home. Texans became the fifth team in the history of FCS playoffs, which goes back 46 years to win their first playoff game at the FCS level in their first year eligibility after reclassifying from D2. Two of those 5 teams comprised of the 14 playoff field in that initial round of the FCS playoffs, which were both Florida A&M and UMass in '78. The other 2 programs are currently in the FBS, Troy in 1993 and UCF in 1990. The Texans were the 13th seed among 24 seed. Final year of the program, 4-year reclassification. Nicks helped the Texans to their best record as a D1 school, finishing 8-3 and 4-2 in conference play. They finished second in the standings in the UAC's inaugural season, despite being picked to finish 6th in the 2023 preseason. As a defense, the Texans were stout under Nicks. His unit was tops in the conference in yards per play, 4.7 defensive touchdowns, 4 tied for the 4th in the FCS fumbles, recovered 11. The unit was also tied for 3rd among the UAC in takeaways at 18 and tackles for loss at 65, while allowing the 4th fewest points per game, 24.5. Um, the Texans held 4 opponents to 17 points or fewer, including their first shutout in nearly 3 years, 42-0 over Morehead State on homecoming. He coached 3 players to all conference honors in 2023, including 2 on the first team, linebacker Quayshawn Washington and defensive back Patrick Jones, defensive lineman Josh Griffiths on the second team. They were 6-5 his first season at the helm as DC in 22. They held 4 opponents to under 14 points, going 4-0 in those games. The defense opened the season with a bang, holding Valley to 13 points, 273 yards, 73 passing yards, and 6 punts. So as you can see, the defense at Tarleton State has been really, really solid. And they've been on an upward trajectory again. This is a guy with not without head coaching experience, but he definitely a guy who's been around. He's been around a long time. He spent 20 years as a defensive coordinator at D1 level, holding that title at Tarleton State, at UTSA in 2020, at Middle Tennessee State from 2012 to 2016, Ole Miss from 2008 to 2011. South Carolina 2005 to 2007, and Southern Miss from 2001 to 2004. His other titles and stops included outside linebackers coach at Ole Miss in 2019, safeties coach at Virginia Tech 2018, defensive analyst at Texas A&M in 2017, and numerous defensive position titles among his full tenure at Southern Miss from 95 to 2004. So, he's the guy who's basically been a DC the bulk of his career. So he would definitely bring that defensive mindset again. Would be interesting if anything was, just interesting to see what his philosophy would be as far as allowing, who he would have to run the offense. But that's pretty much it. This defense right now is averaging 16 points, allowing 16 points per game, giving up 162 yards on the ground, 4.3 yards per carry, and 150 through the air. They have only allowed 4 touchdowns through the air, and they have 15 interceptions. That's a tremendous number there. Defense definitely seems to be ball hawks. Uh, opponents are at 31% on third down, 42 on fourth down. The defense has 13 sacks, right? Defense had 23 sacks. So they've done a good job of rushing the passer. They've been good on third downs, and that's one of the reasons why this team is they're 9-0, 5-0, 5-0 in conference. They have an FBS win. They pretty much on a fast track to the playoffs. So that's definitely a guy with a good defensive pedigree, and somebody that you would want to at least keep tabs on. So those are some of the names that, like I said, I've seen floating around. I may do another one of these later in the season as we get closer toward the end of the season. Maybe we have some kind of information or some better hunches. But right now, like I said, I just wanted to cover some of these names that have been batted around that aren't the usual suspects. So with that being said, tomorrow we'll probably have our for entertainment purposes only tomorrow, and then Wednesday will be our Week 10 preview. Swag Smoke, kind of not sure because I just started a new job. I'll be working mostly nights, so I don't know how this is gonna go. But Sunday will be our Week 10 recap, and we'll do it all again next week. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the Swag. See Well signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.